pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
You're very welcome.
Before we start, I'm going to just indicate to everybody, there's not going to be any citizen participation tonight due to the schedule that we have and the executive session we have to adjourn to. So, the next, if anybody wants to address the board, the next meeting, be more than happy to.
You have a date on that, Steve?
February 19th.
February 19th. Okay, the other thing I want, it's, this one's a little bit on the personal side myself. I'm directing this towards our fire chief. I'd like to thank the ambulance service for a call they went on to a friend's house. And I understand the people, the individuals who showed up with the paramedics were beyond outstanding and were very professional and very caring. And I want to thank you for that and thank the department for that. Once again, the professionalism they displayed was outstanding, and I was told that and to pass that on.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we got, there's a time, 6:35, close enough. Firm police auxiliary appointments, Chief Wishart, you're up.
So we have two auxiliary applicants that we're hoping you'll apply to the auxiliary. Our first one is Connor Semanti. Correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but Connor lives in South Hadley. He's gone to HCC. Yes, sir. Currently works at the Hampshire County Jail. Yes, sir. And he's been through the Reserve Airman Academy. And we think he'd make a great addition to our auxiliary. We're hoping you'll appoint him.
Any questions?
How long you been at
I read his resume.
the Sheriff's Department, Hampshire County?
3 years, sir.
3 years?
I don't recognize the name.
Not Hampshire County, no.
I'm surprised he even wants to say Hampshire County. What, them?
What's some of your training you have, Connor?
I was also in the Army National Guard for 6 years. I was deployed to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where I conducted detainee operations. I'm also a member of the Hampshire Sheriff's Honor Guard Unit. I am currently training to be a urinalysis investigator, and I am also an electronic monitoring officer for the Hampshire Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. Thank you for your service as well.
Yes, thank you. Have you ever actually participated in the street? And
I help at the Sheriff's Office, road jobs, events throughout the county. Other than that, not much else.
okay.
No, I read his resume and it was fine. He's qualified, if not more qualified than some of the auxiliaries we already have.
All right, well, I'm gonna make a motion that we affirm the appointment of Connor Szymanski,
Semanti, sir.
Semanti, to the auxiliary for the Granby Police Department.
And I will second Glenn's motion as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief.
Congratulations, Connor.
Thank you, sir. Feel free to stay or go. One of the sergeant, Anderson will call you. I'll have you. Great. Thank you. The second applicant we have is Jonah Vaclavisak.
Can you
And
spell it?
Jonah's from,
Can you spell it?
oh, boy, no. Okay, hold on. VACLAVICEK.
Thank you.
Jonah lives in Southampton. He has a bachelor's degree from Wesleyan State University. He also has done an internship with the U.S. Probation Department.
Yes, sir.
And is currently working at is he work at a private school?
Yes, sir.
Private school in security. I think he'd be a great applicant. Also, he's academy trained.
Jonah, how long you been at the school, and what do you do for the school?
I've been there since March, and I'm a third shift security officer, so I do vehicle patrol, foot patrol, lockdown of the entire campus.
Okay. Where is the school?
Deerfield, Mass.
Deerfield, okay. What's the size of the school?
200 kids,
Okay.
from 6th to 9th grade, all boys.
You got your hands full.
Yeah, yes I do.
Jay, any questions?
No, I don't, I've read his resume too, and they're both outstanding individuals.
I'm doing good.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion to affirm Jonah. I'm not gonna even try to say your last name, because I know I'm not gonna get it right, so, Chief, if you would, please.
Clavicek.
Correct.
All right. To the auxiliary police department for town of Granby.
And I will second Glenn's motion as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Congratulations. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Congratulations, Jonah.
Thank you, sir.
Nice job.
And next,
Before you move in, I'd like to try and sneak David in on a couple topics.
oh, yeah,
Okay?
Yeah, we can send him home that way.
Yep.
sneak on in.
Basically, most current one was flooding today at Dunkin' Donuts. We've had this problem over several times over the past few years. I've reached out to the landscapers and to the people at Dunkin' Donuts in the past, trying to get their landscaper not to plow snow. There's a drainage way that drains into a catch basin in the intersection right here. If they block that, it floods their parking lot and it floods my sewer manhole right there. And we've almost had the system fail. Water levels raise faster than the pumps can get rid of the water, because they're not designed to handle stormwater flows. I was speaking with Chris about this earlier today. I did reach out to the Dunkin' Donuts, who gave me the name of Keith Halon, called his cell phone, left a message, he called me back. I told him that had to be moved today because they're predicting heavy rains tomorrow. When I was out there, I was supposed to go out and show his landscaper where not to push snow. While I was out there, his landscaper never showed, but I started to see some flooding going into our sewer manhole. So we went out there today and broke that bank back, cleaned it to let the water flow into the catch basin where it belongs. So, I don't know what we do in the future. We got a couple of options. Either I push snow onto his parking lot and clear that and send them a bill for our time. I mean, we had a police cruiser there today for us directing traffic at the intersection because we were there, trying to open that up so it doesn't flood the sewer system. So you've got police officer, one of my laborers, and me in a backhoe opening up that, which we've been there numerous other times in the past. And this is just negligence on the part of their snowplow contractor who's pushing snow into a spot that he shouldn't be pushing it anyway, because you're blocking lines of sight at that intersection. I'm sure the chief is concerned about that. There's a number of accidents there already, and so is Mass DOT. They can push it anywhere else they like. Near a corner of an intersection is a bad spot to push it anyway, and with the way the drainage is set up in that corner, it floods their parking lot. I've seen it over a foot deep in that parking lot before.
That's their property right there.
This is their property. I'm not sure, actually, town property follows this line right here.
Mm-hmm.
This is all town of Granby property. I am not sure where the exact property line is here. I'm, on this drawing here is from Mass DOT on,
202 project.
the 202 project that's coming up, and it's showing basically just pavement line striping. It isn't showing property lines very clearly. But I suspect that we're close to the property line. There's a drainage or a sewer easement that goes through there. But what the problem is, they're flooding their own parking lot, for one thing. They're interrupting the drainage that goes to the catch basin on the intersection. I don't think Mass DOT would ever allow them to do anything like that now. It was probably snuck in before anybody was paying attention. Normally, you have to maintain your own stormwater on your own property with a catch basin or whatever, infiltrators, or maybe with a pop-off to theirs with a pipe going into the system, but you would never be allowed to surface drain water onto a state highway from your parking lot. And I don't know what Mass DOT is gonna do with that in the future, but my concern is flooding that sewer system, because we've had the situation get so high where it's almost into the electrical components. If that ever shorted out the sewer system, you're talking about major expense and inconvenience for everybody on the system. That sewer, if you lose that pump station, it isn't like you just flip the switch and turn it back on again.
Dave, can you reach back out to him and ask if there's markings that can be put in place so when their landscaper plows, he does not plow into that area?
I did speak to the landscaper on the phone. He was supposed to
Yeah.
come and meet me, but I had meetings to run to. I had to go open it up and I left.
But the bottom line is, it's the property owner, it's his property, so I'm thinking if we reach out to
Yeah,
Helen,
he's-
so.
He's working for Halon.
Yes, so I think if we reach out to him directly, and I think you already have, asking him if they can mark the area where they shouldn't be plowing into.
I mean, it's self-explanatory. It floods their own parking lot. Any landscaper, plowing contractor, whatever, shouldn't be blocking a catch basin on private property or
Right,
public
but
property.
I understand
because-
that, but it is happening, so I'm wondering if, we can, the property owner can do something to mark it and have his landscaper plow correctly, and if not, then I think as a town, we probably have to take action on our part, but.
No, it's affecting the public way, correct?
It's affecting our sanitary sewer system
Which
as well.
is-
It's flooding it.
Right,
I mean,
but it's also affecting the public way, correct?
If the corner floods, what happens to you?
I've never let it
You never let it get
start
that far.
flooding over that way, because by that time, it's already flooding our sanitary sewer system.
But I'm thinking if you can reach out to him directly, and we can also send a letter from the select board indicating that our concerns and problems.
I mean, we can definitely follow up with a letter today that we
Right.
couldn't even wait for him to be there
Right.
today. Because originally I told him I needed to move before the rain come in tomorrow.
And
When we went there, it was already flooding this afternoon because of the melt.
I'd put that in the letter as well, Dave, that, you made time to go down there and meet the landscaper didn't show up, so, it needs to be a priority, and again, I think if it's not taken care of on his end, then we need to take care of it on our end.
Okay.
Right, the bylaws are
And bill
clear.
the landowner.
Yep,
Absolutely.
yes,
For any and all cost.
any and all costs. My personal thing, the bylaws are clear. If it's interfering with the public way, you can get a $25 fine from the police department. I say give them the fine for $25 and say, here's your warning, $25. If it does it again, we're coming down with the machinery and you're paying full cost. End of the discussion.
Chief, did anything seem to be blocking the view of traffic, impeding traffic?
The first time I heard of this was today when Dave called me and asked me to have a cruiser come down and help him with traffic.
Okay,
I knew that it was flooding. We've not had one person complain about a line of sight issue. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. but we've not
I'm
heard
just
anybody
saying,
say
I don't know if you had or not, that's another concern.
We've not heard that.
And again, I wanna respect the business owner, they are a business in our town. As well, there's 3 or 4 individual businesses there, so I think if we start, speaking with him, and hopefully the problem corrects itself, if not, then we need to take action, and I think we can put in there the letter as well, Chris, speaking to the amount that will be charged as well, if it's not done properly.
Well, that would depend upon the storm.
Right.
Right.
Time
But-
and
It's a
labor.
time and
Right,
material.
but he will,
basis.
but in the letter it state he will be charged.
Yeah.
Now, how many times have you gone down there before and talked to these individuals? So it's not like they don't know about it.
I've never made contact with Keith Halen before. It was always through a landscaper, because I've talked to Dunkin' Donuts, Bill Lucchese?
Lucchini.
Who was the manager there originally, and he just directed me out to the landscaper. So I would try to catch the landscaper at the beginning of the season, tell him how critical that was to maintain that drainage way, not to plow there. It seems like on a big year where there's a lot of snow and it gets difficult because there's not a lot of room to push snow around there, it always got blocked, and we would have to go there. And this is not the second, or it's probably the third or fourth time we've been there in an emergency to open this up. So, but this time here, this isn't even a real big storm. There's not that, the banks aren't even that big.
Right.
And they blocked up right into the drainage way. So, it's obvious that they weren't even attempting to keep that clear. If it's a new contractor, I don't know.
Well, it could be a new contractor, it could be someone new plowing who doesn't know, and
Yeah.
so, I mean, this could be different reasons why, but I think we take our action as
Keith
needed.
Talon was aware of it today, and I did speak with the landscaper about keeping that open.
Did you document any of the other times that this had occurred?
No, that was years, over the course of a number of
but
years, yeah.
I'm just curious.
I mean, Chris was aware of them, the times we went by there a few times, with flooding issues.
I mean, it's not like the first time they've been warned.
This is the first time I ever get a hold of Keith Talon, though.
Okay.
I mean, it was,
Right.
Yeah, he
Not-
may not be really aware of the circumstances.
yeah, but he was spoken to today, so.
Okay.
Um, On the other issue, we've had a lot of problems with sewer pumps, as you know, with trash and everything in the system.
We're making a little bit of noise. I don't think they can hear you at home.
Sorry. We've been trying to track down where the trash is coming from. Right around New Year's, just before New Year's, we made a few sets of bar screens that we slip in the manholes. We put one on the first manhole downstream from Finn's Hill. I put one on Amher Street. Amher Street seemed to be clear, we never caught anything large. Finn's Hill, we've had a number of hits. I can show you pictures of debris that we're pulling out of that manhole. Knock on wood, in the last week, it's been better. I don't know if the notice that they sent out, based on the letter we put to everybody, I don't think they sent it to all the residents right away, because we were still pulling debris out of that a week and a half ago. This week is the longest stretch we've had in 2 months that we didn't have to pull a pump. It's almost a week now. I shouldn't even speak on that, but it'll probably fail tonight. But
Hopefully letters
this
sent
is
out.
the
that
longest
receive-
stretch, and the bar screen didn't pick anything up over the weekend. Since last week, we haven't seen any debris in the bar screen. So something is changing. Hopefully, somebody's gotten the word not to throw large debris down the toilet. Hopefully, that's the end of it. If that is, we'll pull the bar screen out of that manhole, because we have to keep checking it. If it does catch debris, we don't take the debris out, it'll cause a backup into their system. So it's a labor-intensive job on us, and you don't know how long it can
Right.
go. So we're constantly out there. In fact, we had to go out there today, open up the snow off the manhole, clear it, open it up, check the bar screen, make sure that it wasn't blocked, and deal with that. But we've got a new pump on order. I told you the old pump was to the manufacturer. They're not honoring the warranty. They said it was single phasing. I don't know what caused that. We had a motor start relay that burned at the same time as the pump. I don't know if the motor start relay caused it to single phase. It was shorted on one leg, causing, I don't know if the relay burnt and caused the pump to go, or the pump burnt and caused the relay to go. It's arguable
Right.
which caused which. In any case, the pump was overloaded, it fried it. I'm gonna get some pricing on it, but I'm not too happy with the manufacturer. In the past, we've had one other pump failure that was short-term after we purchased the pump, and it was just replaced without question. These guys took it apart, and they said it was single phasing, and we can argue who caused what or how, but they're not standing by the warranty because of the damage that they saw inside the motor.
Do you want to go back to the same manufacturer or consider an alternate source?
We already did consider an alternate source. The new pump is coming from a different manufacturer.
Okay.
And
Thanks, David.
I will
Cooper shirt or something.
Chief, you're up. Bylaw Review Committee.
So, I've got some handouts for you. This one, I believe, you already have. So we started, I'll try to summarize as I pass these out. We started looking at the bylaws as part of a charge from the Selectboard back in October of 2015, which, yes, was a considerable time ago. Part of the process, I should say part of the process, a big part of the process that we did was we reached out to residents, we reached out to town officials, department heads, people who we knew had a vested interest in whatever topic we were talking about, and basically looked for input as to what people thought needed to be reflected in the bylaws, things that weren't in the bylaws, things that needed to be changed because of legal updates in the bylaws. But we met approximately 65 times. The document that we forwarded to the board, I don't remember when we forwarded it, but it's basically a reflection of all that coordination. What I had planned on doing tonight was just summarizing some of the major changes that we made. Certainly, the summary isn't inclusive of every little thing we changed, but rather than go page by page the entire document, which I don't think anybody wants to sit through, my plan was just to summarize those changes. Certainly, I can answer any questions that the board has, or if the board wants it kind of dissected any other way, we can do that too. So, is that amenable to the board? I just go through the major changes and then you ask questions as you see fit. I also have them up here too if we need to look at anything in particular. So one of the probably the newest, biggest change to the bylaws you'll notice is there was an elected official recall. I think Rich, great, he kind of brought that to our attention. Rich Dunlap, he brought that to our attention. Did a bunch of research, and we used a lot of the information that Rich came forward with about that. Basically, what we realized through Rich was that there's no ability or vehicle in the town bylaws to remove an elected official at all. So in other words, once you're elected, no matter what you do, you can be an elected official.
It's like a judge.
What? Yeah, it's like a lifetime appointment for 3 years, or whatever your appointment is. So, we looked around at some of the other towns. Rich brought us some examples, and we kind of molded a process that we thought fit the town. We wanted, one of the things, and I want to make sure that the way that I'm speaking is the entire effort was from a group of people, not one person. And so one of the things that we came up with the recall was we thought it was important to have that as a possibility in case something really bad happened with an elected official. But we also kind of wanted to temper that with, it shouldn't be political reason. It shouldn't be, well, I didn't vote for you and I don't like you, so you don't belong in that position. We wanted to make sure that whatever bylaw we came up with reflected that. So what we came up with was a 3-step process, which was some of the examples that other towns had. The first process is an affidavit, so 100 voters would have to request a petition for a recall from the town clerk. Once they do that, the clerk would give them the petition to sign, and then they'd have to get 25% of the registered voters at that time of the petition to sign the petition. Once that happens, basically, that petition would be certified by the clerk, the town clerk, sent to the Board of Selectmen, basically ordering an election to happen. That's the recall provisions in a very small nutshell. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to at least try to answer them.
What's the current voter population?
I have no idea.
4,500 and change.
Yeah,
1,100 signatures.
about that.
Again, we were trying to make sure it couldn't be done for a political reason. It should be done for a reason, that person either wasn't doing their job, couldn't do their job, not, we didn't vote for this person, or we don't like this person's views. It shouldn't be a political
Well, shouldn't that be written in somewhere?
It is in
Or is
there.
that- okay.
Again, this is, there's all sorts of reasons for the recall mentioned in the bylaw itself. I can certainly show them to you if you'd like to see them, but, it's gonna hurt your neck, but this just describes the process. And so, the statement of grounds, basically lack of fitness in sobriety while performing official functions, involuntary commitment to a mental health facility, being placed under guardianship, a conviction of a felony, neglect of duties, misfeasance, which is a legal term, just basically means doing things in an unlawful manner. So there are criteria that would have to be met. The bylaw goes into the whole idea of what happens. What does the election look like? What does the ballot look like? What happens if you go? What happens if there is an election? It's basically a two-part ballot. The first part of the ballot basically says, do you want to recall Al Wishart? If the answer to that is yes, then you have to pick who is going to be part of that. Who you're voting for. If the answer is no, then you don't vote for anybody. And so that's again, that's one of really an original thought of ours. We took that from. I don't remember what department or what town we took it from, but.
Who makes the decision as far as if it's an ethical violation?
The voters do.
Okay.
The voters do. So, we realize that, without having a judge make the decision on what's malfeasance or misfeasance, what's this, what's
Right.
that. Really I guess the way we looked at it was this situation has to be put in the voters need to be the ones empowered in this. And we believe it was up to them to decide it. And if you could get the 100% of the petition and then 25% of the registered voters, we felt like, well, then that was not for a political reason.
Okay.
Steve, can I make one comment on this? Originally, I approached the Board of Selectmen, of course, there were 3 different members, and each one individually approved or were in favor of passing this recall. And one thing that I didn't want to happen, I believe it's Long Meadow. They
Yes.
want to throw out their school committee members, and I think, well, the school committee members, and they do not have a recall vote. So I didn't want it to be passed where there was a lot of emotion involved. I think it's important for the town to have the recall bylaw in place without any, anything in their minds as far as recalling some individual. And also, over half the communities in Massachusetts have a recall vote. So I just thought it was real important to make sure Granby had something in place in case it was needed in the future.
Absolutely. I think,
Yep.
yeah.
And when I read it, I thought it was very well written, very well organized, and I think it's a lot better idea than Long Meadow going out and changing their charter right now so they can get rid of elected officials. This was a lot cleaner, and like you said, Rich, you're not picking on anybody.
Right.
Just a fact.
It's
No.
really the type of thing that you want to have in place and you hope you never need.
That's correct.
Precisely.
Because by the time you get to the point where you realize you need it and don't have it, you've got a big problem.
And who wants to go change the entire charter of the town, like Long Meadow's doing?
It's like Chicopee didn't have one with Rich Goyette, and they couldn't get rid of him, although he whoopsed it.
So that's
It's
pretty
an
much
example.
the elected official recall, kind of in a nutshell. Certainly, if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer it. But again, I figured you would want me to go word for word for all of these documents. So
Do you have enough water?
I've got plenty of water here. Plenty of water.
I got a brand new one.
So the next area that
And
had
Rich,
some
thanks
kind
for
of-
bringing that forward too, the
Yeah,
information.
Rich did a lot of
Thank
work
you.
with that and provided, I don't even know how many different versions of it, but it's appreciated. The next area that we made some changes to was the Board of Selectmen. We are suggesting changing your titles to Select Board. It's more gender neutral. We talked, as part of this, we've been talking to the Attorney General's office and trying to get their idea of what has to happen for that, things like that, and even just the topics in general. And one of the things things that they did say is, not to just change the general bylaws. If we're going to do that, then that should be reflected in all of the zoning bylaws and anything else town related. So and I don't have the zoning bylaws in front of me, but the zoning bylaws should be referring to the select board, and everything else referring to the, one referring to the board of selectmen, the other to the select board. So that was one of the changes we're suggesting. The other thing we added to the the select board area is we added the authority to promulgate rules and regulations wording. And basically, probably just making, putting something in writing that you kind of already have the authority to do, but just making it more official and having it there. So that was the other major change there.
And the reason this was being proposed is regarding the stormwater management plans. As the laws evolve and change, we want the board to be able to adapt the rules and regulations to the new changes without having to go through bylaw changes every time we're doing that. So just make it a little bit easier.
Makes sense.
One of the things I neglected to mention was who was on our committee. Virginia Snowpeck, Steve Nally, Chris Martin, Al Bale, and Brian Hochschild. Brian and Al couldn't be here for different reasons, but just to give you an idea of the makeup of our committee, at least as it currently is. We've had some people come and go as well, but that's the current makeup of the committee. The town administrator section of the bylaws that we're suggesting, the changes that we're suggesting.
Before we get to that, Al?
Sure.
Under the public posting of warrants and annual town meeting reports, I notice we used to have a posting in the newspaper when we're having it, but that's been deleted.
Where are you? I'm sorry, Dick.
I'll tell you what page in a second.
That'd be great.
On page 4.
Public postings of warrants and annual town report?
Right, the
Okay.
old one had that we had to have it in 5 places and it had to be posted in the newspaper. We should be improving communication, not
Well,
restricting.
we thought about that too. And
Okay.
what we thought was that, quite frankly, newspapers are kind of becoming a thing of the past, where
Yeah.
we have other things available to us that when these bylaws were first written, weren't. And they're certainly not widely used, which is why we added one of the, on the town website, public places. There was something else we added to that that I'll have my.
Well, officially, we don't have a town website in as much as posting, because
Yes, we do.
I thought everything had to be posted at Kathy Kelly Regan's office by the bylaws, because,
She is the official, but,
that's right.
but we filed with the Attorney General's office that if we can't post here in a timely manner, we can post on our website in a timely manner, and it's considered an official posting. If she's out sick, if, she closes her office early or whatever, sometimes there's issues.
Well, because I know sometimes Kathy Lennon gets overwhelmed, and she just doesn't have time to post everything either. I know you're shorthanded.
But if we find out that Kathy Kelly Reagan isn't available for the official timestamp, the Attorney General's office does allow communities, if you notify them, to post it on your website, and they use that timestamp as the official timestamp.
I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't mean that all the warrants and all this stuff will be posted on that. It could be up at Kathy Kelly Regan's place as the only place to find it.
I'll disagree with you with that, but
I'm just reading from what,
I will disagree with you with that.
that's fine. I just want to, if we want to do the website, I think that's great, but I think it should be properly funded and and the way it is now in your office, you're underfunded and overworked. I mean, I'm not trying to boo anything, it's just a fact. They need help. Kathy Leonard and Chris Martin can't do everything. And if we're gonna make that website an official thing for the town, that everything has to go up, then we have to properly fund it, that's all I'm saying.
I think our committee's thought process was that this might actually be even an easier way and a more effective way to advertise it. Whereas if it has to be advertised in the newspaper, someone has to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas from their computer, they can very easily add something to a website or whatever. So and not to mention the effectiveness, not just the efficiency
Yeah.
from the perspective of whoever has to post it, but from the efficiency standpoint of how many people it's actually going to reach.
I agree entirely, the website is the better thing, but my concern is the staff that we have there may not be adequately enough to keep it. And if we're gonna make this a requirement, then we should fund the appropriate amount to get it there, is all I'm stating.
Now, I think we should keep it in the newspaper. We have two local newspapers that we use, the Town Reminder and the Sentinel. And I think people do read them. And there's a lot of information that's kept in there. A lot of people don't, we're assuming that everybody goes on computers and goes to websites and stuff like that. We're assuming that. As Jay mentioned too, I think we should be considering better communication and not leave out things that would reach people. I think it's a small fee that we pay to have these things put in the Town Reminder or Sentinel that are two local newspapers for us. I know people always pick them up and are just browsing through it, whatever, bless you. They have a lot of the local sports and stuff in there, as well as, other information for the town, so, I think it's important that we keep it in those type of papers, because they are useful, and I think, I see a lot of people picking them up, just, going through them, so I think that's a good place to have them.
Any way we can do to improve the communication in the town, I'm for. Any way we can do it. If it's outsourcing the website, if it's getting more funding, a person up there, whatever, I don't care. As long as get more communication within the town, that's all I'm trying to say.
What I'll do is, I'll take that, whatever suggestions you have.
Yeah.
From tonight's meeting, we'll take that back to our committee, try to incorporate that into the overall document. Go from there. I'm sure there's gonna be other things that come up that.
Well, this is still has to go through a public hearing and then a special town
Absolutely.
meeting,
Yeah,
so.
and that's part of the thing I probably should have
Right.
mentioned was, any way we look at this, no matter what I say, no matter what you
Right.
say, the town's gonna decide.
Right.
So it's really their document, not ours, so.
And I'm just trying to make it clean as possible, so when we get to those stages, we just keep running through it, and they see that everybody did a good job, and that's it.
So, the next area, we all set with that?
Yep.
Yes.
So the next area was the town administrator. Without getting into the small, minutia of it, we expanded the explanation of his duties and responsibilities. That area was probably in need of that. We looked around at a lot of different documents for town administrator, things, executives of that nature, and tried to incorporate it. Certainly Chris had input in it as well. But that's what we did with the town administrators section.
Yeah, 'cause I noticed in the 2014 one before this, the town administrator wasn't even in there, in the previous version of bylaws.
Well, here's the other thing I probably should have mentioned. These bylaws, we'll get to this later, are supposed to be done every 2 years.
Right.
I think we stopped counting at 20-something years, because we're
Okay.
not exactly sure when they were done last. They've been added to certainly and changed, but in terms of a review like this, it's supposed to be done under the current bylaws every 2 years. It took us longer than that just to do it.
Oh, I believe that.
So, it's been a while.
Bill Godfrey was on the last group.
Was she?
And that
So,
was, I think she said 94, 95.
that gives you an idea how long ago. So,
Under the town administrator for the appointment authority, I thought the town administrator recommended to the select board, and then we signed it like we do all the appointments, just like we just did a few minutes ago.
Town administrator appoints the board of firms.
Right, but it doesn't state that in the paragraph.
Because that's part of your policy, so.
Okay, I'm just saying, it doesn't state that in the paragraph.
I'm gonna suggest if we could get through this, and then make your notations, and then we could go back at some point, the next meeting.
Well, if we're gonna go through it, we're gonna go through it. If we're not, well, then we'll just continue the meeting to another time.
No, let's go through it, as he suggested, and then we can make our notations, and then,
I don't understand. I'm going through it as he's going through his sections with the stuff that I've read and I've highlighted.
Yeah, I don't see an issue. The chief's here, we can ask questions as he's here. So this is something we don't understand
But we do
completely.
also have a time constraint to do that executive
So I'm
session.
thinking-
I know.
oversight.
We can get through it, but I think
Well,
it's important we understand what we're talking about, so.
that last question was you thought we should clarify.
yeah, I was on section 3, appointment authority.
Okay.
Because all it says is in there that the town minister shall appoint the town accountant, the highway superintendent, the police constables. that mean he's hiring them as well?
Our understanding of the way that it's supposed to work is that the town administrator appoints, but he does so, nothing goes, Chris, please, if I'm wrong about this, jump in.
The process that was discussed when the town administrator position was created was that the town administrator would bring forth names for appointment. The board then had 14 days from that point to either affirm or deny said recommended appointment.
How about for department heads of hiring and stuff like that?
No. The town administrator, you're not giving him total authority. That is usually reserved for town manager and above.
I'm just saying, the way the paragraph reads, the town manager shall appoint the town accountant, the highway superintendent, the police chief, constables, fire chief, building inspector.
And Jay,
Yeah.
I appoint. If you don't affirm the appointment, it doesn't happen. That's the way it works.
Yeah,
Okay?
but it doesn't say that in there, so. And I didn't know if that means that you were gonna hire the people from now on versus when we did the,
The town administrator under Mass General Law doesn't have hiring, firing authority.
mhm.
That is reserved for town manager and above, which is mayor or town manager, unless you do a town charter specifically giving that authority.
See, I never knew that. I just knew you as the town administrator, and I'm just working off of that, and based upon what I read.
Well, we can clarify that, we can look into that further, this is all good.
No, I think it's just clarified, there's a mass general law that states what is allowed, what's not allowed, so.
Yeah, maybe just put the Mass General Law into that paragraph, and then if anybody wants to look it up, look it up. I mean, that's,
But it goes back to Jay's, I think the point he's making though, when we do bring it to a public, meeting, public hearing, that those are questions I'm sure other people would have as well, so.
There's gonna be a lot.
Right, so it's good to have,
Yeah, absolutely.
so if we can clean it up
information,
now, that was the idea, that's why,
Absolutely.
otherwise I wouldn't have read the whole thing and highlighted and gone through it.
Anything else, town administrator?
He's got 15 days to appoint, and then he consults with the select board on removing individuals. But then Chris has explained it that he doesn't have the firing or hiring ability, which I was unaware of. Okay. He negotiates contracts, including union contracts, covering any subject within the town administrator's jurisdiction, provided however that such contracts should be subject to the final approval and execution of the select board, which I thought was good. 'Cause that way he does all the groundwork and then he brings it up to the select board. I'm not trying to make all the negative stuff, I did the positive stuff as well.
We think that reflects kind of what we do already anyway, just kind of putting it
Yeah,
into writing.
now I'm into the budget now, on chapter 4.
So, the budget process, one of the things that we talked about, was trying to figure out the best way to, make it a more seamless situation, make it more beneficial for everybody. This is probably the area that we had the most discussion about. We discussed it on, I don't even know how many meetings, and, I think that we might wanna have some more discussion about it, just to give you an idea, and it's not reflected in the document you have, because we were working on a budget schedule that was submitted to us by another department head. And one of the things that we talked a lot about was, can we move the town meeting dates to better serve the departments, specifically the school department, in their budget process. And so we talked about moving it to the second and fourth Tuesday in May. I believe, don't quote me on that, I have a document I can show you. And we went back and forth whether we were gonna suggest changes or not suggest changes. Our minutes suggest that, we were gonna suggest that, but what we never did was transpose that document that we were working on into the document that you have. So what I'd like to do is kind of bring that back to our committee with the rest of the suggestions that come from tonight, and throw a little bit more work at that. But in terms of the budget process, we were trying to see if there was anything that we could do to make it more seamless, I guess.
Did you come up with it?
that was the best thing that we could come up with, was making that, and I'm, just so you know what I'm talking about, that I know you're aware the school has an issue where if they don't have their budget parameters by Christmas is June 1st, if they don't have it by June 1st, they have to give out
Pink slips.
significant pink slips that, even though they think that they might not have to do, they do it anyway to be safe. Which obviously isn't a great thing to give half your staff pink slips when they don't need it, but you have to do it to protect yourself. So we went round and round about that, and that's one of the areas that I think that with all this, we'd like to go back and kind of revisit.
How does that reflect as far as the election? Because I know usually it's kind of set up based on the election so that the people that are voting, bringing it forward as far as the town budget, isn't a previous administration, it's the new administration.
One of the other suggestions that we made was that officials elected in that election don't take office until is it dissolving?
Yeah, the end of the town meeting.
End of the town meeting. So that allows the sitting people who negotiated all that and were part of that whole budget process, finish what they're doing. So Al Wishart or Glenn Sexton, who comes in as the new select board member, sits down and goes, I wasn't party to any of this, I don't even know what we're talking about, but yet, you're the one
Right.
who's up there being asked these questions. So that's one of the suggestions that we were making. So that, the positions put in place from that election would not be effective until the town meeting was dissolved.
Right, so they can actually have a start date for that person that's elected.
Yeah, so the election will happen, if it's somebody new, the older person stays in place until the budget is finalized or the town meeting is ended, and then they take office.
It just seemed to make more sense.
It does make more
It
sense.
does make more sense.
So that was the big thing with the budget process, and like I said, we'd like to spend a little bit more time. We knew that we were gonna come back here and have a bunch of questions that we'd have to kind of iron out, and I think that's one that our committee would like to revisit, or will revisit. I don't know if I'd like to revisit it, but we're gonna revisit it. Any questions with that area?
No.
So onto the finance committee, we did a lot of research when it comes to the finance committee, and some of the questions that came up were, what is the role? What's the role of the finance committee? And John Lavera was present for a bunch of our meetings, along with former town manager, his name? Bob Glassman, thank you. We're there, and we discussed a lot of things with them. They brought forth a lot of questions. In short, what our research suggested and what we are suggesting to the town is that finance committee's responsibility or job is really more related to being sort of a watchdog of the budget, being an advisory committee, and not really a controlling committee. And we looked at several areas of law, the DOR guide for financial management for town officials, DLS recommendations. We looked at a study, or rather, I think it was an audit of Southampton, who was dealing with some similar situations that we were, and all of these different suggestions were that a finance committee should really be an advisory board, not a controlling one. And so that budget really is a select board budget, or a town administrator's budget, and that in a perfect world, the finance committee and the select board and town administrator would come together and would iron their differences out for that final thing that before it gets printed out. And if not, what we're suggesting is, if the finance committee says, no, we don't agree with the select board, the town administrator's version of the budget, so we're, in the budget booklet that gets printed out, there would be the select board budget, and if the finance committee did not approve, would say that they didn't approve and why. So they would have the opportunity to disapprove with, or not agree with the budget. We talked a lot about that. I think that's what many finance committees' responsibilities are more, I don't want to say relegated, but that's more where they kind of live, is in that advisory board kind of situation.
I agree.
So that's a suggestion we're never making. Did I miss anything with that? Questions there?
Then any money that needs appropriated would just go through the article as usual, without anything being specific.
Well, nothing's gonna change on that end, really.
Right.
Really, I think what this comes down to is whose budget is it?
Right,
And who's printing the budget booklet?
I agree.
And the idea was to try to get everybody on the same page. But, again, looking at all the different research and documents that we came up with, they were suggesting that the finance committee really should be an advisory committee and not a controlling committee.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So in terms of the town treasurer, we expanded the explanation of that position's duties and responsibilities. It was very minimal, it exists is very minimal. So if you look at that, you'll see there, basically just like the town administrator, we started to kind of enumerate the things that he does and what the expectations are. Certainly, he had a lot of input into that as well, as did Chris. In fact, if you ask any questions whatsoever about that, I'm going to defer to them because that's their area.
You're the chairman, not me.
Hey, I just take notes.
No, like you said, Chief, was, what, 20 years ago, all of that was done before, and I'm sure the town administrator as well as the town treasurer, we all have expanded, and I think it's important that the information's there as to what they do.
And I think that's what happens, you know. Granby's grown a lot in
Yeah.
20 or 30 years. The government has changed quite a bit. Laws have changed, regulations have changed, job descriptions have changed. And we're trying to get our bylaws to catch up with them at this point. Any questions of the town treasurer? So committees appointed by the select board, one of the things we changed was that to remove a member would require a petition of that committee to the select board. Because in the end, the town administrator and the select board, they're the appointing authority, so for a committee that you appoint really shouldn't be removing people. Seeing as how they don't have the authority to put them there, they shouldn't be removing them.
Right.
Seem to follow logic, so.
Yes.
The only other thing there is we also suggested that if you have any alternates, if you have more than one alternate in a committee, that their voting seniority, like who votes first, so if you need an alternate and there's two there, who votes first? We just suggested that, you know, be done by seniority of the continuous service in that committee. My guess is that at some point that happened somewhere, and that's how we started talking about it. I don't really know the circumstances behind that, but anybody? No?
Yeah, at one committee, we had alternates who were appointed. One of the alternates wasn't really agreeing with the other full committee members, so they chose the other alternate who was there, who was more sympathetic to their views than the other alternate who was against them. So
They were
sort of,
picking and
they
choosing.
they sort of
Pick and
guided how the vote would end
Right.
up going. So we're trying to get that out of there.
No, that makes sense.
So that was really it for the committees
Well,
appointed by the select board.
Chief, in regards to that, there'll be a date as to far as like seniority, so when that alternate was appointed, there should be, the date's gonna be clear as far as seniority.
Right, and one of the things that we talked about was continuous seniority. So if Al Wishart is an alternate in the bylaw review committee in 2015, leaves for a year, and then comes back, yet somebody was on there for 2 years straight, it doesn't matter that 5 years before, it's about where you are now.
Right.
How long you've been here now.
Right,
So like
continuous.
continuous service, not break, so if you break your service, then it starts all over again.
And also, just like you did tonight, you appointed 2 members to the auxiliary. The first appointment has more seniority over the second appointment because of the timing.
Time, yeah.
Same idea.
Yep.
If you're wondering how I chose it, was purely by order.
Well, I'll give you, when, for instance, at the sheriff's department, when you're hired, it goes by your last name, even though you're all go through the academy, graduate at the same time, your seniority's based in your last name.
I'll go, yeah. From that date,
From that date.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sexton was tough.
Yeah, Wishart, I hear you. So we also are suggesting adding a drone bylaw. This is a completely new bylaw, obviously, they didn't think about this in, was it 1994?
Yeah.
They weren't thinking about drones back then.
Well, they were,
You know, there's a lot of applicable, federal law, FAA regulations and things like that. This just puts us in compliance with that. Allows us to kind of restrict them a little bit more in terms of, hey, someone's flying this drone over my house, it's on my property, how do I know they're not taking pictures of me or whatever? It basically keeps us, like I said, in compliance with federal law. It also, a lot of it has to do with getting permissions from landowners. So if you wanna fly over my property, you need to have written permission, things like that.
I just had one thing that I put in there. I wrote in, drones may be operated by Granby emergency personnel over property that they may have lawful right to have entered based upon just cause, and i.e. a search and rescue type of operation versus speeding it up. An example, I was here one day when, I don't know the mountain range, but they had to go out and get some lost hikers, and the ATV would only go so far, so they had to go on foot. And now we have two things: we are losing time to get the people off the mountain in the darkness, and now we have our own people getting in harm's way, climbing up these steep mountainsides and stuff like that. So I just thought it would be better if I'll just say safety complex. I'm not gonna pick the police, and I'm not gonna pick the fire department. They should have one in the town that they can get out there, because you enter property when you have a just cause.
Yep.
So if you're operating the drone, you have a just cause to speed up, to help the person, and also limit the possibility of one of our people getting hurt.
I think it's a great suggestion. It's something that we actually, hadn't thought about. That was an exception for, emergency services. So I've noted that.
Yeah, that's one how it pertains to the federal laws though too, as well.
I know that it can be done. It's just something
Yeah.
that we hadn't thought about in terms
Yeah.
of an exception.
It's a great point, Jay.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to help. I mean, I went through the whole thing, so I might as well give you what I get.
Most of the federal guidelines are like stay below here, stay
Yeah.
away from the airport, things like that.
Yeah.
You're right, because it's 5 miles within an airport,
It's a certain,
and
it's a certain.
500
you have to have
feet.
a license for it.
Yeah.
In other words, you don't. If you're flying it for commercial purposes, you have to have, you're regulated by this stuff.
Yep.
Stuff like that. Don't light over crowds. Anything else with that?
no, it's the only thing I had on the drones.
We also made some changes to tag sales and flea markets. Basically, tag sales, we would raise the number from 2 to 4, but no more than 1 in a 30-day period. So you could have 4 a year, but you can only do 1 a month. And those have to be for residents. Flea markets, excuse me, 4 per year, 2-day duration, again, 1 in a 30-day period.
The only thing I had there was the tag sale person could use a 3-day weekend like we just had if it was good weather.
Yep.
Why not let the flea market people have a 3-day holiday weekend too, up to 3 days? Is there a reason for that? I don't know, that's why
I
I'm
don't recall us discussing any reason for that. Anybody? I'm not sure that we did.
just bringing it out. If we have a 3-day weekend and a holiday, it could make the town a little more. You could raise the fee to $250 instead of $200, and bring more business into town.
The problem I would have with that, Jay,
Okay,
the flea market is usually meant to
Com-
draw large crowds.
commercial, yes.
Okay. There are issues with, on a 3-day weekend, sometimes the holiday has a larger amount of traffic, because these people would be setting up mainly on Route 202.
You're right.
Major highways.
Yep.
So I would have a concern by allowing to occur on the holidays, dealing with holiday traffic in addition to someone with a commercial venture advertising the flea market for a 3-day period and trying to draw people in for that 3-day period. That's all. It's just, to me, it could be a traffic thing there for.
Yeah,
for us.
but the only thing of it is, it doesn't restrict it currently now to non-holiday weekends, so they could have a 2-day flea market on a holiday weekend.
Yeah, they could, but that Monday or whatever, that Saturday, you're gonna avoid some of the heavy traffic. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. I just made a notation there to mention it when it came up, and the difference between the two. A private sector can have a 3-day, but a commercial cannot.
I think, I don't specifically remember exactly the mentality behind that, but I do know that a lot of our conversations between the differences with the size of a flea market and
Versus,
what the
yeah.
impact could be of a flea market versus a tag sale. Now, granted, the tag sale, depending on where that tag sale is, it could, could problem. But usually when we're thinking about flea markets, especially because of their business or commercial nature,
You think of Brimfield.
tend to be bigger, right, exactly, so. But it's noted, and that's something we'll talk about for sure.
Well, does it currently state as far as how many days a tag sale can be?
Kathy, do you know the answer to that?
72 hours.
72 hours,
For
okay.
tag sale. Does it say anything
Okay.
about flea market currently?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Is there still going to be a, fee or whatever if you don't have a tag sale permit?
Permit, yes.
And who's going to,
It is, and if I could get to it,
Police department is the.
it's where it seems to fall, yeah.
so I would send all what we have for the week to you guys, and if someone wasn't on that list, you guys would charge them, or I would charge them, how would?
Well, the way to charge them would be through a non-criminal disposition
The
ticket.
only reason I ask is I have some people who now
Right.
disregard it totally because they feel that no one's gonna do anything. So
Yep,
I'm,
go ahead, interrupt you.
no, I just wanna make sure where I am, if I'm telling them, you can't have it.
I can tell you that in the 22 years that I've been here, never once have I seen somebody penalized for a
That's what I'm
for a
asking.
tag sale. So,
And yet, I argue with a resident coming in, and they say, well, no one's gonna do anything anyway, so I don't need a tax sale permit, I'm just gonna do it.
She's got a point.
she's not wrong.
She's got a point.
So I think there's a lot, I would say, in the bylaws that, plowing across the road. Every once in a while, we'll have somebody doing it, and maybe Dave will call us, or one of our guys will see it, and usually we go and talk to the person about doing it, and they clean up their mess up, or Dave's already cleaned it up, and we talk to them and tell them not to do it again. And that's kind of been the historical nature of how we've dealt with it. We were having a conversation before the meeting started about an officer who no longer works for the police department, who, it was a big thing for him, was plowing stuff across the town way, and he'd go out and look for it. But again, I have not seen anybody written a non-criminal disposition for plowing across the street in the time that I've been here, so. So, the bylaw review, we're suggesting that period should be a 5-year review. We thought, considering that it took us, over 2 years to do this one, doing it every 5 years. Again, keep in mind, we did it, it hasn't done it so long, it was a pretty heavy task for us.
Yep.
But if you did it every 5 years, we felt like that would be a more reasonable time period than 2. I mean, realistically, it's gonna take you at least a year to really go through it, even just to get the people that are on that board up to speed. That was the only suggestion in terms of the bylaw review period. The animal control bylaw is completely revamped. It replaces and updates basically the dog control bylaw we have right now. We should have done this, I think, in like 2014. I don't remember exactly when that law passed, but, it's on camera now, I said it. But, in any event, there were changes to the animal control laws in Massachusetts. And we've done our best to stay in compliance with them. All of our dog officers are trained animal control officers now. But this puts us in compliance with Mass General Law, and most of what you read in there reverts right back to what the law says. Probably the biggest thing, the biggest change for us really is that I think most people would be concerned with is the leash law piece of it. So right now, there really is no leash law in Granby.
Right.
It's a control law, so your dog has to be under your control. That doesn't mean it has to be on a leash. You could be walking down the street with it, and if he stays with you and doesn't go after somebody, he's under your control. What we're suggesting as part of this animal control bylaw is that's all well and good if you're on your property and your dog's under your control and you don't want to keep him on a leash and he's not fenced in, he's under your control, that's fine. Or if you're on somebody else's property, they give you permission to do that. But if you're on town property, other than it being in a dog park, that dog needs to be on a leash. If you're walking down one of the town streets, that dog needs to be on a leash, regardless of how well-trained he is. We thought that was a reasonable actually have somewhat of a leash law, control law in town. Because right now, you know, what does control mean? I mean, I guess if a dog attacks somebody, that's, we would all agree that it's not under control, but if he runs into his neighbor's yard and the dog, and the person says, ah, come on back, is he under control? You and I might have different opinions on that,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
That's the big thing with the animal control bylaw. It's a lot more expansive. Talks about dangerous dogs, which the law talks about how they have to be handled, and what the select board's responsibilities, the town's responsibilities, the animal control responsibilities. So there's a lot there. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of it.
I just had two things in there. Under section 3 on page 35, to make it easy for you, no fee charged for seeing eye dog or a hearing dog. Can we add service dog to that?
Why don't you just call it a service dog?
That's fine too.
We
but-
talked about that. We actually talked a lot about
Okay.
that. But the question, I guess the problem that we had was, and correct me if I'm wrong, then we got ourselves into the situation where we were trying to describe what a service dog was.
Well, a service dog, from what I understand, has to be certified in certain things and have their own harness and labeled and all that. You see them in stores when you see them going in? No?
Yeah, they gotta be trained, they gotta be able to go through a course.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Well, what happens if a doctor indicates to you and says they need a service dog,
Comfort animal or something.
comfort animal, I mean,
That's not a service dog. Comfort animal is not a service dog.
So to answer your question, was your question, Rich?
Yeah,
To
don't
answer your
charge
question-
them.
No, we talked about it, and what we came up with was that we didn't want to get into the situation where we were trying to define what a service dog was, where it kind of already existed with the examples already given by the state law.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we just go by what the state law, if the state law talks about a service animal is, that's what we go by. If they don't, then we just name what we want.
Can I ask a question? If I have a pet pig, does it have to be on a leash?
Not according to the
No.
Granby bylaws, the way I read them.
No.
The only other thing is, between where we were and we are now, from the last bylaws, the Board of Health was completely dropped out of the new current bylaws. That's for a specific reason?
No, I think we relied heavily on the state law.
Okay.
And what they proposed as a guideline for animal control, the animal control bylaw.
No, I meant before that, even that you had, there was, on the different sections of describing of the offices, this time, the Board of Health compared to the one previous was not even discussed.
I'm sorry, I'm not
Okay,
following
let me
you.
go back to the page here and I'll tell you what I mean. It's before animal control law,
Okay.
but since you went to there, I wanted to finish that one
Yeah.
subject without getting. It's before gas guy. It's before Board of Appeals.
You talking the job duties of the Board of Health?
Yeah, I think that's why what it was. It's right after,
In the current bylaws, we have a section labeled Board of Health.
All right. The existing or the new ones?
Existing.
Okay.
okay, because I said, I compared the old bylaw with the new one, so I know the differences we're going through. On like chapter 14 under penalty, after it, on the old bylaws, it had a chapter for Board of Health that was not in this document.
What page are you on the old document, Jay?
I have to call the old document up. If you want me to, I can do that. But the new document for the AG's office is page 30. And let me call up the old one for you. I have to run that down.
You talking about the election of the Board of Health?
I have to go back to the old document and read it. I just noticed the whole section was left out. And I didn't know the reason why, so I just was gonna ask, that's all. Like, I knew the reason landfill was not put in, but I know we still got a Board of Health, so I didn't know why. Was, I say, section 14,
So you're talking about section 11, there should be elected at least
I'm still scrolling back, but she's not going too fast tonight.
Sake of time, Jake, we just have the chief look at that and get back to us?
That's fine. It's just a section from the old bylaw that was not in the new one that I noticed. That's all it is.
Thank you for making that suggestion, Board. My suggestions aren't really taken.
Right.
in
And there
line.
wasn't nothing in the new one,
Yes,
I
they
just
are.
wasn't the reason why.
I'll look, the second time I'll look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
We may have combined them into another section. Instead of, because all it did was talk about their election, so we may have thrown it into another section about election.
Okay, I think we may have, yeah. And without looking at it, taking the time to look at
Because we
it.
did talk about that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
We did talk about that, obviously, and that it's the same reason why we don't have articles on each of the other elected officials, because those are generally governed by Mass General law in terms of what their responsibilities are. What we concentrated on were basically the officers, the town clerk, the treasurer, and the board of selectmen, were the primary officers of the town. Other departments or other elected boards, we don't have chapters on the Board of Assessors, we don't have chapters on the school committee, we don't have chapters on the planning board, for example, any other elected officials, cemetery commissioners or anything like that. Those are pretty well governed by Mass General law and not typically regulated by bylaws, was the conclusion we came to. And if you refer to the old ones, as the chairman pointed out, they oftentimes just talked about how they were elected.
Okay.
if you want, Jay, I can go back through the minutes and show you what we did.
I just
That sounds
noticed,
right.
I just noticed that was missing and I didn't know the
Yeah,
reason why.
absolutely. This is, again, we did this over a 2.5-year period.
Right. And from looking at it was different people too,
Yeah, it
before
was,
you guys.
absolutely. So the public consumption of alcohol, we decided to change that basically to mimic the wording and mirror the wording of the marijuana bylaw that we just put in place. We liked it better, we thought it made more sense, it was more inclusive, more descriptive. And if the intention of the voters is to basically have marijuana handled like alcohol,
Mm-hmm,
the bylaw should be pretty similar, so.
I agree.
Again, you're already aware of the public consumption of marijuana, that bylaw was already voted and approved by the Attorney General's office. The other area that we spent a lot of time on was a nuisance bylaw. The old bylaws really didn't have a noise bylaw, and that was really, it's an issue for us, I know it was an issue for the Board of Health, I know it was an issue for the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator. And so prior to that, we dealt with things, actually the Board of Health dealt with things from a noise pollution standpoint. And I believe there might have been some zoning bylaws that, said that certain regulations.
Certain decibels.
Right, but the problem that the town had with that was that who measures it? What's the, they specifically said it had to be like some sort of specific scientifically tested device.
Certified,
The person had to be
yeah.
certified how to use it, blah, blah, blah. We decided that doesn't work. It's not working for Granby right now. So what we decided to do is come up with something that was more usable for the town's sake, for the police department, or anybody who's enforcing it. So we looked around, bless you, and basically we related back to reasonable noise restrictions. We used terminology called plainly audible. We discussed what that means, and again, it doesn't necessitate having to be out there with some sort of calibrated scientific thing. If it's, these are the circumstances, if it's plainly audible from 150 feet, depending on what it is, that's a nuisance. There's all sorts of exceptions in there, there's timeframes in there.
Mm-hmm. Hours, differences.
So it's something more enforceable from it's something more measurable from our, if I can hear it from 150 feet away, it's 10 o'clock, that's,
Yeah.
we can all sit here and agree without calling in an expert to
Right.
measure it, so. I don't know if you have any questions about that. So the next area where there were some significant changes was the Historic District Commission and the Historic Commission. Probably the biggest thing you'll know is that there's only one now. We're suggesting combining the Historic District Commission and the Historic Commission, did I say those right? Into one body. The members membership would be increased from 5 to 7. And one of the other things that we're suggesting would be changing the wording to allow the select board to appoint members if there are none available from the mentioned organizations. So for instance, if you were to look at that bylaw or the historic commission, there has to be one from like the Association of Engineers, there has to be someone from the Association of Realtors, things like that. But my understanding is historically, it's been hard to find people that fit that criteria that are willing to volunteer their time. So what we had discussed was allowing the select board to appoint members outside of those confines if they weren't available. So you put it out there, you try to do it, and then if nobody responds, then it allows you to fill your board without keeping those specific place settings available.
It's similar to the rule of necessity.
It is, absolutely. So the only other thing that we changed really, in terms of a major change, was just the severability. Basically, severability is a clause in the law that says, if any piece of this law is found unconstitutional or illegal or whatever, wrong, it doesn't make the rest of them illegal, wrong, or invalid. So if you read the existing document, every 10th one has a severability clause on it. And that's, my guess is because they came in piecemeal as things were added.
Right.
It just made more sense, if we're gonna do it now, to add that as a single clause to the end of the document. So those really are the changes that we're suggesting, the major changes. I've noted your questions.
There's only one more for me.
Okay?
We've run into this problem when I was on the planning board and stuff. Like you have your fees here in your appendix, and you have your fees also stated in the wording. I would recommend where it's stated in the wording, see appendix such and such, so you only gotta change it in one place, because if you don't change it in two places, you're gonna have a conflict, and then who's gonna win?
Lower amount.
But you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we have to make a change, let's change it in one place, not in multiple places. That's all I'm making a recommendation.
We'll definitely bring that back to the committee.
Because I can say with the select board, the planning board, section 3, table 1, that would govern it. Anything in writing, say, see section 3, table 1. Here you could put, see appendix 1. And that was it. And then you can change that anytime you get, simply in one place.
Okay, I got noted, that's a good suggestion.
Okay.
So in terms of what's next for the bylaws, we'll bring these suggestions back to our committee. We'll incorporate them into the document, provide it back to Chris. If you guys have anything else that you need for us, then by all means, send it to us. We're in the process of trying to hear back from the Attorney General's office about a preliminary review of what you've seen. It's certainly not 100% okay, but basically they agree to take a look at it ahead of time,
Yeah.
maybe save us some time and
That's
headache
good.
down the road. We would have to have some public hearings. Certainly the town has to vote at a town meeting, and it should be, before it gets to that point, we should really have it approved by town council as well. And then if all of that happens, it still has to be finally approved by the Attorney General's office. So in terms of a time frame,
6 months a year.
it's,
Yeah.
that's how
Okay.
quickly we can make all those things happen.
When would you want public hearings to start?
I don't necessarily think it makes a lot of sense to have public hearings until we have at least some sort of green light from town council. Because what I'd hate to be doing is presenting it as a finalized document at a public hearing, and then have the attorney say, well, no, you can't do that, and then we show up at town meeting with something that looks completely different. I think transparency is ruined at that point, and it looks like we changed it. We kind of bait and switched it.
That's a good point, Al.
So I would suggest, let's have a relatively final document before we do that. And that's not to say that things won't change. But at
Right.
least we went into that meeting. pretty
Knowing.
transparent.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Not really, but that's okay.
So sometime in the future.
Yeah, that's the
Not
answer
yesterday.
is-
That's all I have, unless you have other questions for me.
I don't. Well, Chief, thank you.
Thank you.
The rest of the committee as well, the bylaw committee members, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Connor, Jonah, thanks for staying. I know the chief said before you could leave, but you sat right there and listened to everything.
Yeah, they know they were gonna be here this long, maybe.
What time is the executive session?
7:45 when we leave.
Can you do that to, and let people know if you have to put in? What I'm gonna suggest is we do not do some of the stuff on this agenda, do that we have a set appointment at legislature.
Yes.
All I would like to do is, if we could, cover who is gonna be presenting what articles for the special town meeting warrant on February 4th. Departmental reports, I think we can defer to our next meeting if we wanted to. The maintenance warrants and the common vic and the entertainment licenses, we can all do at the next meeting.
That's fine.
Okay? The only one that is time sensitive is the reviewing of the town meeting warrant. We have the 6 articles. Sorry. Pardon my head. Of course, it's gonna be on the bottom.
All the licenses. I didn't go through it, but. Very bottom.
Told you, keep the bottom. Okay. The first article has to do with the moratorium for large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems. Who wants to present that one?
I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, Article 2 is the town clerk fee list. I believe the town clerk should present
Makes
that one.
sense, Yes.
Article 3 is acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 64N, Section 3, that you have listed there that we already had talked about. That's to be able to assess a 3% sales tax on recreational marijuana sales.
I'll do that, that's fine.
Article 4 is to fund the removal of trees and woody vegetation at the Forge Pond Dam and Dike. That's $25,000.
I'll do that.
Article 5 is $13,500 to fund the electrical work at Dufresne Park. You had asked the Parks Oversight Committee to go in front of the Finance Committee. While they supported it, they felt it should go in front of town meeting for funding
Right.
versus them.
So,
I don't know if Bill Johnson would be able to make it. I don't know if any other committee member would feel like doing it, but.
I'd ask if they can, if they can't, then I'll present it.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay. And then we have Article number 6 is the water line extension from South Hadley. Jay? you-
Yep, I'll do that. And since we're doing that at that time, do you wanna give them the example of what we're doing, proposing for the 29th?
No. If you give me 2 seconds, I would.
I know, well, that's why I just bring it up, because I know you wanna move on to the other building.
Well, I just don't want to keep people waiting. when
I,
they
and
promise.
you're right, you know, but you know me, I asked a lot of questions.
There's 2 other things. Jay had mentioned to me that, on Facebook, he's been asked a lot of questions regarding Article 6. So prior to the town meeting, we'd like to hold a public forum on January 29th at 6:30 at the Granby Senior Center to be able to invite any residents who have any questions to come and hear more about what the proposed project is, be able to ask questions, and hopefully be able to have the answers to those questions for the special town meeting when the time comes. And what we're planning on doing is having the Economic Development Committee host this forum versus the select.
Sounds good.
Okay? And hopefully we can get GCAM there too.
Yes, I
Tape.
definitely like GCAM.
Hopefully, if not, then I can be there, and if maybe I can run the camera. And go
But
forward.
see, you're already in the picture, Chris.
No, I don't wanna be in the picture. I try and stay out of the picture as much as I can.
Just quickly too, I know at the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Vano had asked about, what'll be the next time we have, participation from the public, and you had mentioned the 19th.
The issue is because the 18th is President's Day.
I will
No,
not-
I just wanna
I-
explain
no, no,
everybody
I
know.
know why, but I won't be able to make the 19th,
Okay,
so that's, I don't know if we wanna, that,
we can discuss it because we have
Yeah,
enough time.
right, but
It's
I-
still a month away.
just reference to that, and it was
It's
said
still a
the
month
19th.
away,
so I
but
just
at this
wanna-
point, it's the 19th unless
Right.
the board chooses a
Right,
different
that's
date.
it. Yep.
Okay. And then the only other thing I had is, DOER is requiring a corrective action plan. There was a discussion in at a past meeting regarding the fact that the school department signed a energy-related contract for the school under DOER rules and regulations. They are not the contracting authority, only the Board of Selectmen can be.
Also, the Massachusetts School Board Authority does not authorize them to sign.
I'm going under DOER, because it's affecting our green community.
Right, but it's both boards don't allow them to sign.
I'm more concerned with DOER,
Okay.
because we had to go do a
Right.
corrective action
Right.
plan because we allowed the highway department to use a little police cruiser, and we were slapped on the hand and saying that's a no-no. Under this corrective action plan, basically what it comes down to is any energy-related contracts, how I wanna put this. In order to maintain the town of Granby's designation as a green community, any and all energy management-related contracts and purchases for the school department shall be done in consultation with the Granby Energy Committee. And the Energy Committee shall submit the proposed contract and/or purchase to the Granby Selectboard for review and approval, with the caveat that all energy-related contracts and purchases may not be approved by the Granby Select Board. And Jay has reviewed it, he's talked with Emery, Emery has signed that the school committee is in agreement with that policy, and we consider this to be the corrective action plan.
And the Energy Committee took a vote and agreed with it, the language of the policy. We did that last Thursday.
Okay?
So it's all set, even though they entered into the contract.
This is the corrective action plan to address the fact that they entered into a contract illegally.
Basically, if you want the Reader's Digest version, because I know we're running late, they spent $53,000 of the taxpayers' money without an article, so it had to come out of the net school spending, and they were not authorized to sign the contract, but they did it anyways.
But again, I'm just asking, is the contract valid then?
So the contract is complete.
Well, let's put it this way, it was signed
Under false pretenses.
under false pretenses, and the vendor accepted the contract with the understanding that the school committee had the authority to do so.
Yeah.
Which they didn't when you reviewed the true Mass General law.
Okay.
So, we're not gonna penalize the vendor, but the action is DOER is requiring a corrective action plan, and this is the response to that.
Okay.
Okay? Motion to adjourn? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn if you want, but Glenn usually does. but
No, I'm
that's-
gonna make a motion to adjourn to go into executive session.
And then we will not be coming
The
out.
only reason we'll come out is to adjourn.
And we are adjourning to the senior center to conduct the executive session.
Yes.
Okay?
Sexton, aye? Anaki, aye.
Joyce, I.
Thank you.